Hi, everybody. Back to Ivan, the one and only. Today's chapter is called Babies. And remember, Ivan and Stella just had a conversation where Ivan told a story of his childhood. And it's one of the first times he ever spoke about his childhood because always says he doesn't remember. And I asked you to write a story for me about something that happened when you were a child, something that you remember when you were really, really little. Now, if you want to write it, you can mail it to the school, Martin Road School, Martin Road, Lackawanna, New York. Or you can also put it on, you can email it to me at my website, my email at school, which is rgraham at, just like yours, lackawannaschools.org. So you can email it to me there too. If you write a story and you want to type it in to the computer or your parents' phone, you can do that. All right, so back in those days, the Big Top Mall was smaller. Now, Ivan's talking about when he was a little baby. It had a pony ride, a wooden train that bustled around the parking lot, a few parrots, and a surly spider monkey. But when Mac bought me a baby gorilla dressed in a tuxedo to the mall, everything changed. People came from far and wide to have their pictures taken with me. They brought me blocks and a toy guitar. They held me in their laps. Once I even held a baby in my lap. She was small and slippery. Bubbles flowed from her lips. She squeezed my fingers. Her rear was puffy with panting. Her legs bowed out like bent twigs. I made a face. She made a face. I grunted. She grunted. I was so afraid she would fall that I squeezed her tightly and her mother yanked her away. I wonder if my mother ever worried about dropping us. We always held on, but that's easier to do when your mother is furry. Human babies are an ugly lot, but their eyes are like our babies' eyes, too big for their faces and for the world. One day, after many weeks of loud talking, Helen packed a bag and slammed the front door and never came back. Remember who Helen is? Helen is Mac's wife. I don't know why. I don't know the why of humans. That night, I slept with Mac in his bed. My old nests were woven of leaves and sticks and shaped like his bathtub, cool green cocoons. Matt's bed, like mine, was flat, hot, without sticks or stars. Still, he made a sleeping sound like the rumble my father used to make when all was well, a sound from deep inside his belly. Matt grew sullen. I grew bigger. I became what I was meant to be, too large for chairs, too strong for hugs, too big for human life. I tried to stay calm, to move with dignity. I did my best to eat daintily, but human ways are hard to learn, especially when you're not a human. When I saw my new domain, I was thrilled. And who wouldn't have been? It had no furniture to break, no glasses to smash, no toilets to drop Mac's keys into. It even had a tire swing. I was relieved to have my own place. Somehow I didn't realize I'd be there quite so long. Now I drink Pepsi, eat old apples, watch reruns on TV. But many days I forgot what I'm supposed to be. Am I a human or am I a gorilla? Humans have so many words, more than they even need. Still, they have no name for what I am. And there's his tire swing. Ruby is finally asleep. I watch her chest rise and fall. Bob is too. He's snoring. But my mind is still racing. For maybe the first time ever, I've been remembering. It's an odd story to remember, I have to admit. My story has a strange shape, a stunted beginning, and an endless middle. I count all the days I've lived with humans. Gorillas count as well as anyone, although it's not a useful skill to have in the wild. I've forgotten so many things, and yet I always know precisely how many days I've been in my domain. I take one of the magic markers Julia gave me. I make an X, a small one, on my painted jungle wall. I make more X's and more. I make an X for every day of my life with humans. My X's look like this. The rest of the night I mark the days, and when I'm done, my wall looks like this. That's a lot of X's. And so on until there are 9,826 X's marking across my wall like a parade of ugly insects. So if he's been there for 9,876 days, if you want to find out how many years that is, you divide it by 365 because that's how many years or days there are in a year. And I can't do it right in my head, but I'll do it on my calculator and tell you tomorrow. It's almost morning when I hear steps. It's Mac. He has a sharp smell. He weaves as he walks. He stands next to my domain. His eyes are red. He looks out into the window of the empty parking lot. Ivan, my man, Ivan, he says, we've been through a lot, you and me. We don't see Mac for 2 days after this. When he remembers, he doesn't talk about Stella. Mac says he's anxious to teach Ruby some new tricks. He says the billboard is bringing in more visitors. He says it's time for a new beginning. All afternoon and into the evening, Mac works with Ruby. Ruby's feet are looped with ropes so she cannot run. A heavy chain hangs off her neck. Mac shows her Stella's ball, her pedestal, her stool, and introduces her to Snickers. When Ruby obeys Mac, he gives her a cube of sugar and a bit of a dried apple. When she doesn't, he yells at her and he kicks at the sawdust. When George and Julia arrive, Mac is still training Ruby. Julia sits on a bench and watches them. She draws a little too, but mostly she keeps her eyes on Ruby. Bob watches too. He's hiding in the corner of my domain. It's raining outside and Bob does not like damp feet. Ruby trudges behind Mac, her head drooping. Endlessly they circle the ring. Sometimes Mac slaps her flank with his hand. Suddenly Ruby jerks to a stop. Mac pulls the chain hard, but Ruby refuses to move. Come on, Ruby. Mac is almost begging. What is your problem? She's exhausted, I say to myself. That's the problem. Mac groans. Idiot elephant. Idiot human, Bob mutters. Walk, Ruby, I say, although I know she's too far away to hear me. Do what he says. Walk, Mac commands, now. Ruby doesn't walk. She plops herself down on the sawdust floor. I think maybe she's tired, Julia says. Yeah, I know, we're all tired, Mac says as he wipes his forehead with the back of his arm. He pushes Ruby with the heel of his boot. She ignores him. George looks over from the food court where he's wiping off tables. Mac, he yells, maybe you should call it a day. I'll close up. Mac yanks on Ruby's chain. She's as anchored as a tree trunk. He pulls harder and falls to his knees. That does it. I'm not playing around, he says. He stomps to his office, and when he returns, he's carrying a long stick. The gleaming hook on its end is almost beautiful, like a slice of a silver moon. It's a claw stick. Mac pokes Ruby with the sharp point, not hard, just a touch. I can tell he wants her to see how much it can hurt. I growl low in my throat. Ruby doesn't budge. She is a gray, unmoving boulder. She closes her eyes, and for a moment I wonder if she's falling asleep. I'm warning you, Mac says. He breathes out, and he stares at the ceiling. Ruby makes a huffing sound. Fine, you want to play, said Mac. He draws back the claw stick. No, screams Julia. I'm not going to hurt her, Mac says. I just want to get her attention. Bob snarls. Mac swings. The hook slices the air just a few inches above her head. See why you don't want to mess with me, said Mac. He draws the claw stick back again. Now move. Ruby jerks her head, flinging her trunk toward Mac. She makes a noise that sends sawdust scattering. It makes my glass shiver. It's the most beautiful mad I have ever heard. Ruby's trunk slaps into Mac. I don't see exactly where she strikes him. Somewhere below his stomach, I think. I know he must be uncomfortable because Mac drops the claw stick and falls down on the ground and curls into a ball and howls like a baby. Direct hit, Bob says. Mac groans. He stumbles to his feet and hobbles off toward his office. Ruby watches him leave, and I can't read her expression. Is she afraid? Relieved? Proud? When Mac is gone, George and Julia lead Ruby from the ring. It's okay, baby, it's okay, said Julia. They settle Ruby in her domain and make sure she has fresh water and food. Before long, she's sleeping. Dad, asks Julia, do you think Mac would ever hurt Ruby? I don't think so, Jules. At least I hope not. Maybe we could call somebody. George scratches his chin. I wish I could help Ruby, but I don't know how. I mean, who would I call? The elephant police? Besides, I need this job, Julia. We need this job. Your mom, the doctor bills, it all adds up. Back to work, you and me. Julia sighs and reaches for her backpack. Homework first, he says. Then you can paint. It's for art class. We're doing watercolors. I'm going to paint Ruby. George smiles. All right then, but don't forget your spelling. Dad, did you see Mac's face when Ruby hit him? George nods. Yes, I did. Poor Mac. He turns away, and only then do I hear him laughing. All right, we're going to stop right there. What do you think's going to happen next? Do you think Mac's going to stay mad at Ruby, or do you think that she taught him a lesson? Do you think he's going to be even more rough with her? I wonder what Ivan will say to her when she wakes up and they talk. Jot some ideas down, and I'll see you again in a few days when you come to my next video.